I think no one wants to hear this, but I've got a great solution to the economic problems and national debt of the world. Jam jars. I'm serious, jam jars. We've got this program, it's a kids program in Britain called Blue Peter. And every year they have an appeal and you collect jam jars and like tops off milk bottles and they make money out of them and do very good things, good causes and stuff. But jam jars, we ought to have a Blue Peter jam jar appeal and collect all the jam jars, and they have to be empty. And what we do, when we've got the jam jars together, we put the lids on, so trapping the air, right? And then what we do is we deliver the jam jars en masse to the banks and say, just paying back what we borrowed, and it's all over. I think we ought to do this. It's only fair. I believe in paying my debts back with what I've borrowed. So there we go. You have fresh air, darling, and sort that out. And ludicrous as that sounds, and silly as that sounds, it is actually what we are in debt to. Debt equals control. This is why this financial system is so important to the Illuminati. What? Oh, I know. It's terrible, isn't it? Have you had enough of that? No. Hey, what are we doing, letting the world be controlled, by this? I'll just finish this bit. With just a very quick demonstration of what I'm talking about with the one-party state. I'm just going to show very quickly, and this is just a selection. This is not the whole administrations who are members of these organizations. This is just a little selection. It's the last 4 American administrations, last 5 actually. 3 have been Republican, 2 have been Democrat. And we're going to start with Jimmy Carter in 1976. He was a member of the Trilateral Commission, and he had an administration that was awash. I mean, it doesn't come great over the computer, but this says CFR, Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission, TC. His administration between 1976 and 1980 was awash with members of these organizations. Here's another selection, the ambassadors. You can't become an ambassador in the United States without being a member of the Council on Foreign Relations today, a private organization. So you get to 1980 and you think, I'm in the land of the free. I'm fed up with that Jimmy Carter. I'm going to give the Republicans a go because that Ronald Reagan seems a nice man and he's different. Well, Ronald Reagan was a non-member, but he didn't have to be. He just read the autocue, Ron, didn't he? But he was a member of Bohemian Grove, the Knights of Malta, and other connections into the Illuminati. But look, his special advisors to NATO Security Council, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger. And now we have a different administration because it's now Republican. Awash with members of the same organizations. You change the administration, but you don't change the coordinating force, which is why the agenda unfolds whoever's in government. So now we move from Reagan to George Bush. And he changed the administration, and again, same coordinating bodies, same again here and there. So you get to 1992. And just after he went to his first Bilderberg meeting, onto the scene came Bill Clinton, and he was a Democrat, very different to the Republicans apparently, and he said he stood for change. Well, he's got the full set, Bill, CFR-TC Bilderberg Group, and his now Democratic administration, it says here, is awash with the same coordinating body of all the others. And this is how the prison without bars works. Right. Well, that's got this far, and I'm just going to now turn and start looking at what we can do about this, which is plenty, and just have a bit of a stretch break. I'm just going to play one song. It lasts 3 minutes, and then we'll get into what we can do about this. There you go. We can talk, and I have for a long time, about the way the world's manipulated, and we can talk about Bilderberg groups and secret societies and bloodlines and all that stuff. But in the end, the suppression that makes this manipulation possible, and always has, is the biggest suppression of all. the suppression of knowledge of who we are and the nature of life itself. Without that suppression, none of this would be possible. And that's why, through this historical period we've been talking about, the effort has been to destroy the ancient knowledge, to destroy those in the native peoples that have ancient knowledge about the nature of who we are, the fact that we are not ordinary men and women in the street, as we have been conditioned to believe. There's not an ordinary man, woman, child, blade of grass, breath of air, drop of rain in existence. There's just the extraordinary. We are extraordinary. We are genius waiting to remember we are genius. And when we remember, this is all over. That's where we're going. And if we want a world of harmony in which we don't see a person's skin as a manifestation of who he is, but the fact that he is eternal spirit, the same eternal spirit that I am. If we want a world of harmony between all races, all people, between us and other expressions of the divine in the animal kingdom and in the world of what we call nature, then we have a simple thing to do. Let's create it. Because the great knowledge that's been lost is that this world is just an illusion. It is a physical manifestation of us. When we have hatred and conflict and division within us, it must manifest as physical reality. If we change us, if we heal ourselves, we will heal the world. It cannot fail to be healed because it is an expression of us. And it's interesting when you look at some of the background. We talked about religions. But what about science, or what passes for it? Again, we have two opposames here. We have apparently opposites who conflict with each other. Religion or science and all that stuff. But they have one key thing in common which the Illuminati will have orgasms over. They are both saying, one says, you are subject to some god, which is always a bloke. Have you noticed? It's always a fella, you know. And he decides what happens to you. Science says there is no bloke. Random accidents decide what happened to you because you're just an accident of evolution that comes into consciousness for a few seconds or 100 years and then goes back to oblivion. Life's a bitch and then you die. You get letters after your name for coming up with this bloody nonsense. It must be a nice way to earn a living. But these are not opposites, they are opposames because they both have this key point in common. They are both saying, you are not in control of your life, you are not in control of your destiny, random accidents or some deity we invent is. And when we believe we are not in control of our destiny, we do not use the power we have to manifest the destiny we want. And that's the idea. The idea is to keep us in ignorance, multidimensional infinity manifesting as a herd of sheeple. There is nobody stupid on this planet. There is nobody stupid in the whole of creation. But if we allow ourselves to be so mesmerized and conditioned by the manipulation that comes through the eyes and ears every day, at the same time we cut ourselves off from the full magnificence of infinity that we are, we can actually do wonderful impressions of people being flippin' stupid. This is what we've done. Now, we're told, because I read it somewhere, that we're the physical body. That's what we are. It's the physical body, you say. That's what we are. We're just physical. In fact, I would suggest, and metaphysics is increasingly confirming this, what this is a vehicle, a magnificent vehicle, for our eternal consciousness to experience this dimension of physical life. If our spirit did not take on an outer physical shell, I could do the research that they invented the swastika. No. What the Nazis did, and what all Satanists do, is they take an esoteric symbol and they turn it around to consciously indicate the negative. This is why the classic symbol of Satanism is the five-pointed star reversed, so it's pointing down, not up. Reverse symbolism. You'll find this in the Illuminati all the time as they use this stuff. This is a Phoenician standing stone in Scotland. Again, the swastika, which the Nazis reversed to indicate the negative. Not surprising. Now, all over the west of England, in the chalk hillsides, are white horses, which conventional kind of histories can't understand or explain where they came from. Well, this one is the oldest, and it's on a place called Uffington, in the Valley of the White Horse, named after it, not really from Stonehenge, not too much of a drive. And conventional archaeology says this was created in 3000 BC or around then. That's just when the Phoenicians were arriving in Britain from the Middle East and the Near East with this advanced knowledge. Why would they put the Phoenicians, on the hillsides of Britain? Because the white horse was a symbol of the Phoenician religion. And so you look at the stone circles of Britain, and this one's Avebury, which is, again, even closer than Stonehenge to that white horse. The massive stone circle and lots of ancient earthworks which connect into it. It's like a circuit board. Here's the stone circle, and this is the biggest man-made or human-made mound in Europe, called Silbury Hill, just down from that circle that you saw. And there's many other earthworks, like, as I say, a circuit board. Now, again, who built these? Where did the knowledge come from? Well, the Phoenicians' arrival in Britain also corresponds with the window of time in which it suggested that these earthworks and these stone circles were created. This is Stonehenge. That's a crop pattern, 125 circles that appeared suddenly. And it's amazing how quick two blokes with a stick can work pushing. Isn't it? Isn't it amazing? Doug and Dave? It is amazing. It's amazing how quick. I mean, they must really move with them sticks. 125 circles. And that's the main road there, going from London to the west of England. Now, with the passage of the Phoenicians, there's a lot more to say about them, but I want to focus on the theme of the day. Came hidden knowledge. This is so important. That image that I showed earlier of the pyramid with ignorance in the main body among the masses of the people and knowledge held at the top is so important. I just want to go now through some of the knowledge that these advanced peoples, particularly these bloodlines, held in the ancient world, which allowed them to build these amazing structures, Stonehenge not least, and also the way that they have held it to the present day, and how they want us not to know about it. Again, there's that image. This is the idea. Create a structure. In the ancient world, it was mystery schools. Now it's the global secret society network. Keep the real knowledge here and them in ignorance of that possibility. And one of the great areas of knowledge is the fact that this planet is encircled and interpenetrated by a web of force lines, energy lines. Some people call them ley lines, other people call them meridian lines, the Chinese call them dragon lines. And where one or two of these force lines cross, you get a small vortex of energy, a very powerful point. Where lots of these vortexes cross, you get, or lots of these lines cross, you get a massive vortex of energy. Now, energy is neutral. It just is. You know, I mean, energy is just like energy. It's vibrating. And you want to say, what do you want me to do? I want you to be malevolent. All right, I'll vibrate to the malevolent vibration. You're a bastard. I hate you. You know. It's just energy. We impregnate energy with the vibration by our thoughts and by ritual, of course, is the focus, very powerful focus of thought. Oh, no, I want you to be loving now. All right, then I love you. I'll just vibrate a bit quicker, you know. It's just energy. It's neutral. It's not good and a bad. So, you know, these energy sites are not like, it's the occult, it's the devil. It's just energy. It's how we use it. And it's interesting that at these major points where these energy lines cross, that's where these people with this ancient knowledge built the stone circles and these great earthworks. This is where Freemasons invariably stick their temples. This is where the ancient temples were put. This is where the pyramids were put. And a massive vortex point. They understand that. It's just energy. You can harness it for malevolent reasons. You can harness it for positive reasons. And interestingly, it would seem that the heart center of this energy grid, where more lines cross, the very heart center, is what we call the British Isles, which it seems is why all these ancient people headed there, and why the Illuminati have focused their whole operation out of there. And there are more stone circles, earthworks, and standing stones per square mile in Britain than anywhere else in the world. It's just extraordinary, because it is such a center of this energy. And they know that if you can harness and control the vibration of the energy grid by your action and by your ritual, you are vibrating the energy that we're all living in, because this is not empty space, it's vibrating energy, to the vibration that most suits your agenda. This is a key area of knowledge which we've been kept from, which has been used to control us. This is from a book, a very good book called Pie in the Sky, Pi, P-I, which looks at the energy grid of Ireland and Britain. And again, talks about the fact that this is a massive center in the Earth's energy grid. Also, this is, it's not a very sharp picture, but this is from Chichen Itza in the Maya country, the pyramids on this side of the world, the American continent. When you start to research this and where the Phoenicians went with this knowledge, it's extraordinary. Phoenician artifacts have been found in the rainforest of Queensland. And again, a lot of people don't know this, that in the Grand Canyon, unmistakable Egyptian, including mummies, Egyptian Oriental artifacts have been found in caverns in the Grand Canyon, in areas, incidentally, which are still barred to the public. The Phoenician evidence can be found in New England. The idea that Columbus was the first person to get to this side of the world from the other side of the world is utterly ludicrous, and with it, they took this knowledge. So when the Europeans, the ones not in the know, came to the Americas, particularly South and Central America, they were staggered to see the same basic stories with different names, and the same basic cultures and artifacts and ways of doing things were found. It's because they weren't the first people to come from Europe. This knowledge went out a long, long time ago. Another area of knowledge is astrology. Astrology. I mean, what is it? It's bloody mad, it's the devil. Oh, we know it's still a stupid astrology. What is it? All astrology is the science of how the movement of the planets creates a vibrational expression which affects constantly the Earth's energy field. As we live in the Earth's energy field, as those planets move and combine, therefore change the energy field of the Earth, we are affected by it. When we are born, some people say when we are conceived, probably both are true, we take on an energy which reflects where we're born at the time we're born. And as we therefore, with that energy impregnation, go through our lives, we, born 29th of April 1952, are going to take on a different energy in that place at that time than someone born on January 16th, 1960. The point being that, therefore, as I go through my life, I am going to, with my energy, interact with the movement of the planets and their effect in a different way to someone born in a different place at a different time. It's just energy interacting. Now, they don't want us to know that, so they've demonized it. The Pope says it's evil. I love the Pope, don't you? I love the Pope. I love the Pope when he's going along on that Pope-mobile. Behind 3.5 inches of bulletproof plexiglass, you know. I love that. I mean, that's faith in bloody action, isn't it? Hey, isn't it? Anyway, now, while they're demonizing it and laughing at it, and of course when you read your bloody astrology in the bloody local paper, I mean, of course not everyone's going to act like that. It's too far out, too generalized. But I know from astrologers who are on retainers from transnational corporation CEOs, and I know from astrologers in Britain who I've talked to, who work with certain people that people would be shocked if they knew, politicians and business people, etc., that the Illuminati do not cough unless it is astrologically right, because they know there are certain energy cycles when what you want to achieve has a much better chance of happening than if you do it at this cycle. They don't hold summits, takeovers, or anything unless it's astrologically right. But that's another area of information they want that they don't want. And it tells how these Anunnaki brought advanced knowledge, took over control, and interbred with humanity, creating hybrid bloodlines. And the hybrid bloodlines were put into the positions of ancient ruling royal power. Now, what do we talk about? What have we talked about all the way through the centuries? We talked about this thing about the divine right to rule. The divine right to be king or queen or leader as a result of your bloodline. And the more you research this, you find this has nothing to do with the divine, all that is, the gigantic I. It is to do with God's. In Genesis, where it talks about the sons of God interbreeding with the daughters of men, creating the Nephilim, when you go back to what that was translated into English from, it says the sons of the gods interbred with the daughters of men, creating the hybrid line, the Nephilim. And they even talk in the Sumerian tablets of how some of the first interbreeding was done by what we would call test tube methods. Now, in 1850, ludicrous. You would have thought 2000 BC, what? We're doing it now. This is an amazing man. One of my greatest friends on the planet, and it's such a privilege to say that. He's a 78-year-old Zulu shaman. He's the one on the left, by the way. Called Credo Mutwa. I met him first in 1998 when I first went to South Africa, where incidentally they dubbed me anti-Islam. You know, I'm getting a complex, you know. And we talked about the Illuminati, which he knows all about in Africa, because that glorious continent has been crucified and raped by this system. And we also talked about the extraterrestrial connection to the Illuminati. And we talked for hours, that's as far as it went. I went back this August, or last August, 99, and he'd read The Biggest Secret by this time, and the moment I kind of started circulating in Johannesburg, he was on the phone to me. I must talk to you, I must talk to you. And I went to speak with him, and he tells, and I've done a couple of videos with him, because once he started speaking, I thought, he's 78 years old, he's an ill man, diabetes and stuff, and I thought, he's got no one to pass this knowledge on to. And I thought, I've got to get this knowledge down, because my goodness me, it mustn't be lost. And I talked for him for hours and hours and hours. And he said, I've read the book, and I'm going to tell you what I know. I shouldn't tell you what I know because I was initiated not to, but the world's got to know this, not the few anymore. And he told me the story of Africa, the black African history. And what he told me was the same story that I'd uncovered around the so-called Western world. That a race of gods, which quite possibly started on Earth and went away and came back a long time ago, which is why possibly they think it's their planet, interbred with humanity, created hybrid bloodlines, and these entered the positions of power. Not only, he said, among the white aristocracy and royal families, but also the black African royal lines claim descendants from the same gods. And he showed me artifacts to support what he was saying, because being a Zulu shaman, and one of the last, he is a man that attracts loads and loads of these artifacts. And he showed me this. This is called the Necklace of the Mysteries. It's called a necklace. It goes on his shoulders, and it's incredibly heavy, made of copper. And he says that it's at least 500 years old. It's been mentioned 500 years back. He says it's at least 1,000 years old. And it tells the story, symbolically, of African history. And at the front, in pride of place, you have an earth woman, and you have an extraterrestrial with a big willy. And how can I put it? On the necklace, that fits into that. And what that is symbolic of, 500 years back this is now, at least, is of this interbreeding, which is at the heart of the African, black African knowledge in this underground stream, which had to go underground when the Illuminati European control races came in and destroyed. As Credo said, they milked the minds of the shaman and then killed them. So if we move through this necklace, this is a closer up version of it. This is the Earth Woman. Now, interestingly, this willy here is now copper. But what Credo says is that in the originally, it was gold. Now, this is in southern Africa. And this reflects, of course, and relates to this classic legend of the ancient Egyptian culture, the golden penis of Osiris. And when you go through, here's a close-up of the extraterrestrial, and I'll tell you about him. I said, did they really look like that, mate? And he said, no. And the reason for this will become clear as we go along. He said, these gods, they call them the Chitahuri in the black African shamanistic stream. He said, anyone that depicts us as we really look, instant death. So he said, what the people started to do and had to do was to symbolize the gods in a way that made them look not human, but not exactly as they looked. And here's the Earth Woman. In fact, as I recall, I went out with someone like that once. Now, I emphasize, this is 500 years old at least. He says 1,000. This is hanging from the hand. It's a classic flying saucer. This is the side view. In the African sun, it's very difficult to take pictures. But this goes down exactly the same as up there. And I said, what's that? He said, well, according to the African historical knowledge, this is what the Chitahuri came in. He said they never came all the way in these. These, according to what we're told from the ancient accounts, they came out of much bigger ships and went around the earth in ships like this. Also, interestingly, when you look at the hand, now this is a few things here are going to become very important as we go along, because the talk layers, as you'll see as we go along, layer on top of layer on top of layer. This is just the foundations here. Here we have the sun, and the symbolism of the sun is massive in the Illuminati, as you'll see. Here you have the constellation of Orion. Now, lots of people who have investigated in the modern world UFOs and stuff have connected some of these extraterrestrial beings to Orion. Here's a 500 at least year-old artifact from Black Africa showing the symbol of Orion. Over here you have what has become known as the Star of David. Again, people think it's a Jewish symbol. Well, the Jewish religion uses it. In fact, it is an ancient esoteric symbol that can be found all over the ancient world, going back as far as you want to go. It seems to be a symbol to do with the fusion of spirit into matter, the fusion of male and female, the fusion of opposites into harmony. Now, in the center here, you have that image, the cross in the circle. That will become very significant as the day unfolds. But here, perhaps the most significant in relation to the Illuminati is the eye, the all-seeing eye. We will see, as this day unfolds, the fundamental symbolism to the Illuminati, all around us again and again, of the eye, the all-seeing eye. So I said to Credo, what's that? He said, that symbolizes the Watchers, which is one of the names they used in the ancient world for these gods. He said that symbolizes the Watchers, the all-seeing eye of the Watchers. Now, as the day unfolds, you'll see the significance of that in terms of the Illuminati. Interestingly, the arrogance of the European streams who think, and the arrogance of the modern world, where we think we're at the cutting edge of human knowledge. This is 500 years old, maybe 1,000. I keep repeating that for emphasis. This is on it also, and that is the depiction of the ancient Zulus of the earth. They knew it was round, long before Galileo. Their name for time and space is almost exactly the same word, because they knew all that time back that time and space was the same. But it's Africa and they've got black faces, so they must be not very bright. The arrogance of it. And again, all around the world, you see the depictions of gods, this recurring theme. This is in the Hindu culture, where they talk about gods in very advanced technology flying through the sky. Also, interestingly, Credo talks about the fact that these gods had elongated skulls. I took this picture from it's a member of the royal family of ancient Egypt. And it's a very, very round skull, elongated skull. Now, I have a picture, couldn't get the computer to download it this morning, unfortunately, of a skull found at Chichen Itza in the Yucatan, in the old Maya area. And it was found, instead of saying, well, I'll look at this religion, I'll look at that religion, I'll look at that religion, and what I think is right from all of them I'll take, and what I'm not sure about, you can keep that. I don't feel right to me. I'll come to my truth, thank you. Instead of that, you get an off-the-peg religion, and you have to contract to all elements of it, no matter how nonsensical you may be, because if you don't, you're not a Christian, you're not a Jewish, you're not a Jew, you are not a Hindu, you are not a Muslim, because you don't contract to all these things. Don't think for your bloody self. You take what we say off the peg is the truth. So let's have a look where some of these things came from. That sums up religion for me. There's these two old, kind of, Stone Age people, and they've got these two pile of stones here, like, and he's saying to his mate, doesn't Throng look silly? He must know that our pile of rocks is the real God, And that's the way that we've gone. We have been focused away from the fact that we are multidimensional infinity, not only part of the great I, we are the great I, into thinking that we have to look up to some deity that's been created, and there's always a middleman in between us and the deity. Have you noticed that? What I call the religious Mr. 15%. I mean, is it really not possible to talk to the divine without going through a bloke in a long frock? I mean, is it possible or what? I don't know. Maybe it's me. And here's something else I find interesting, because I'm a strange man. You look at the origin of all the major prison religions, and where do they come from? The same area of the world. Judaism, Christianity, Islam come from there, of course, but so does Hinduism, which was taken into the Indus Valley, the stories that later became the Vedas, the religious books, etc., by, according to conventional history, a white race from the Caucasus Mountains that went in there. And, as I said earlier, one of the focuses in the ancient world, the focus probably, of these particular bloodlines I'm talking about, was Babylon. And out of Babylon, funnily enough, just a coincidence, has come the blueprint for control by religion. In Babylon, they had, this is a Freemasonic symbol, but it symbolizes a lot of the Babylonian stuff. This manifested this image of the eagle looking both ways here as the Roman god Janus, of the face looking both ways. And one of the major mind control projects on the planet is the Janus Project, based at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. But in ancient Babylon, they had three deities in their trinity. That comes up again and again. One was Nimrod, the father, and then there was Tammuz or Ninus, the son, and they said that the father and son were one, and only through them could you get to heaven. And the female aspect of the Trinity was Queen Semiramis, who they symbolized as a dove. They symbolized Nimrod as a fish. And what they said about Tammuz Ninus, the son, was that he died to save humanity. It's thousands of years before Christianity. And when they killed him, they put him in a tomb, they rolled a rock across the front, and 3 days later, when they rolled it back, Tammuz had scarpered. I think I've heard that somewhere before. And what you get is this recurring theme and these recurring stories, which, as the passage of time goes, just get put in a different context, a different time frame, with different names. And we're supposed to take them all bloody literally. I mean, like, you know, we take this guy literally. You see, when the Illuminati moved from their center in Babylon to Rome, not only did you get the Roman Empire, you got the Roman Church, which became the Christian Church. So we went from the place Babylon, where the blueprint of control by religion and the stories that so many of them came out of, they moved home to Rome, and suddenly we get another religion that's based on the same stories. The coincidences are amazing. Oh, he's got a big hat, look, you know. I love his hat. Actually, someone pointed out some of the symbolism of that. When you look at that hat sideways, it's like a fish head, you know. And the fish head keeps coming up in terms of Nimrod, which symbolizes a fish. Now, this is a wonderful example. You look at the deities who died to us, sins can be forgiven, died at Easter, and born on December 20th, the Virgin Mother. There's endless numbers of them. This is a classic, one called Mithra. Mithra was basically replaced by Christianity. And the reason that so many people moved from Mithra worship across to Christian worship was because it was so bloody seamless. So just the names changed. Everything else was the same. They symbolize Mithra as a lion, the sun. They said that he held the keys to heaven. And there's the serpent, the snake going around him. They said of Mithra, he was born to a virgin mother. He died to save the sins of humanity. They brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh to his birth. And on it goes. It's just a mirror. When you go back even further to ancient Egypt, on the left, you've got Horus, the son of God of ancient Egypt, that is constantly symbolized, as I've shown, by the Illuminati, who go back to the Egypt big time with the bloodlines. And on the right is Jesus. Some interesting little correlations here. Where are we? Jesus was the light of the world. Horus was the light of the world. Jesus said he was the way, the truth, and the life. Horus said he was the truth, the life. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, the house of bread. Horus was born in Anu, the place of bread. Jesus was the good shepherd. Horus was the good shepherd. 7 fishers board a boat with Jesus. 7 people board a boat with Horus. Jesus was the lamb. Horus was the lamb. Jesus is identified with a cross. Horus is identified with a cross. Jesus was baptized at 30. Horus was baptized at 30. Jesus was the child of a Virgin Mary. Horus was the child of a Virgin Isis. The birth of Jesus was marked by a star. The birth of Horus was marked by a star. Jesus was the child teacher in the temple. Horus was the child teacher in the temple. Jesus had 12 disciples. Horus had 12 followers. Jesus was the morning star. Horus was the morning star. Jesus was the Christ. Horus was the Christ. Jesus was tempted on a mountain by Satan. Horus was tempted on a mountain by Set. Did they have plagiarism laws in those days? I don't know. We seem to be following ourselves rather obviously here. And what these things kept doing was creating prison religions, not only prison religions that were fiercely enforced to keep people from expanding their minds to see the true nature and magnificence of who we all are, whatever our genetic background. This, you would think, is Mary holding Jesus. It's classic. This is how the ancient Egyptians depicted Isis holding the baby Horus. The cross supposed to be a Christian symbol. No. It goes back as far as you can follow history, the cross. So, I'm not going to go into this now. There's too much to do. But like I said earlier, there's a tremendous amount of evidence that a Roman aristocratic family, very much part of the bloodline, called the Piso family, wrote the original gospel stories, which have, of course, been rewritten and messed around with ever since. Now, the person who took those gospel stories and turned them into the religion we know today is a guy called Constantine the Great, the Roman emperor, who called together 318 bishops, it is said, at his palace at Nicaea, which is now Iznik in northwest Turkey, to make them decide what Christians should believe, because they were arguing among themselves like crazy, and so they should. Who's to tell anyone what to believe? But he wanted a creed which everyone would agree on, and then it would be fiercely enforced. They had a punch-up, apparently. They were kicking and cussing, and eventually he imposed what's called the Nicene Creed, which is still the basis of what Christians are supposed to believe to this day. This cross is part of the mythology that the night after, or the night before the Battle of Mithraean Bridge, when he was fighting to become emperor, that he saw this cross kind of manifest in front of him, and Jesus said, by this cross you will conquer, in this sign you will conquer, to be absolutely accurate. Now that sounds like the bloody Prince of Peace, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. And Constantine the Great wasn't a Christian. He was a sun worshipper. He was one of the bloodlines. He worshipped a deity called Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. And to him, he was creating just another sun-based religion for the masses to take literally, to keep them in line. And that's where Christianity came from, although the vicar didn't tell me that. The reptilian genetic stream. And I'm not seeking to demonize that. I'm just talking about one group that keeps coming up. I mean, the reptilians are just the reptilian genetic form is a genetic form, so what? I'm talking about one group within it. And we have a reptilian brain. The scientists call it the R complex, R for reptilian. And they say, interestingly, that from the R complex, we get the traits of obsession with ritual, not just like sacrificing people, but going to the supermarket at the same time every week. Oh, it's Friday, we've got to have fish. Why don't you have fish on Thursday? You know, be exciting, you know. Ritual, ritual, ritual. And as you'll see as we go through the day, the Illuminati are stunningly, breathtakingly obsessed with ritual. The R complex, the reptilian part of our brain, also produces, the scientists say, the concentration and the obsession with top-down hierarchical power over structures, the pyramids. And also, it's from, they say, that part of the brain that we get what we call cold-blooded behavior, being able to do things to people by being emotionally detached from the consequences of what you are creating for them. When I talk to a guy who's come out of the Montauk mind control project, they call them Montauk boys, there's been a lot of books written about this in recent years. He talked to me about this reptilian thing recently. And he makes speeches and does talks at conferences about DNA now. And I don't know, I'm not an expert on DNA, I'll just give this for information, make of it what you will. What he says happened, and is happening, is that this fusion of mammal genes with the reptilian genes, the hybrid, created a situation in which they could open reptilian DNA codes, close them, open mammal DNA codes, and close them. And they could switch between the two. What he's saying is that the DNA has open codes, which manifest as a physical expression, characteristic, and they have closed codes, which are dormant. And if these dormant codes open, or these other codes open, then they manifest a different characteristic. I didn't know this, but do you know there are still people on this planet being born with tails? They call them in the trade causal appendages. When it happens in the Western world, they just whip them off and sort it, you know, when they're babies. But in the third world, where they don't have that medical expertise, there are still people walking around with tails, because a DNA code that would manifest as that characteristic, which should remain closed in this point of our body's evolution, has in that one person opened, and it's created a characteristic. And he talks about how these particular bloodlines, and there are very few at this level, who can move between the two and open and close codes. And for some reason, drinking human blood, particularly the blood of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, seems to be very beneficial to holding mammal codes open so that the reptilian ones don't manifest in the world around us, which will bring us later into why, when you follow these bloodlines from the ancient world to now, the obsession with blood-drinking, satanic rituals follows them everywhere. Now, when I started looking at this, I started scanning around, and someone sent me this. This is from a temple in Egypt, an ancient piece of artwork. And what you've got are the ancient Egyptians lining up here to give a gift and offering, sheep and stuff, to their god. And when you get to the end of the line and you see what the god looks like, well, it's kind of very strange. It's not what you think the god would look like. And when I started scanning around, there's not that many absolutely literal depictions of reptilian figures, reptilian gods, but there are some. What Credo Mutwa told me is that the Chitahuri, which incidentally in Black African translates as the children of the serpent, the children of the python, which is what they call these bloodlines. He said because they were reptilian, they said, as I said earlier, never depict us as we really look. So the symbolism of the snake, the symbolism of the serpent became depictions of the gods. But you can find some. This figurine and others of a reptilian humanoid figure with a reptilian kind of baby figure were found in graves in the Ubaid culture, which was in the same area that later became the Sumer culture that I mentioned earlier. China, where a lot of this interbreeding appears to have gone on in the ancient world, of course their whole culture is based on the dragon, which is another symbol, it seems, of these reptilian gods from the ancient world. Now, what I did, when I got some of these people together who had seen this shape-shifting situation, and I got them together with an artist, and I said, depict through this artist what you see when this shape-shifting goes on. Another person who talks about this is a lady who conducted sacrificial rituals for some of these people, including the British royal family. And she confirmed exactly, with indeed more detail, what Diana's confidant was saying about the Windsors shape-shifting in the way that I'm talking about. Now, these nodules on their head are something that come up again and again with such consistency that it's just amazing, and you'll see more confirmation of that in a second. And these are also kind of depictions of what people see when suddenly the mammal, the human form disappears, and suddenly they're looking at something else. Talk about freak you out. In fact, someone was telling me backstage just before I came on about a couple of friends of theirs who are like big guys and really grounded and into none of this stuff, who had exactly this experience, completely freaked them. And that was in Vancouver. Now, when I said to Credo Mutwa, what do this Chitahuri look like? He said, I'll show you, because he's an artist. And we went down this rough track to where he paints, and he said, that's what the Chitahuri look like. In fact, there are many genetic streams, but that's one of them. The eyes are something that constantly get described. The glowing yellow eyes get constantly described by people who see this phenomena. And indeed, when you go back into the ancient world, you see the same depictions. So what I said to Credo, or what I did with Credo, was immediately get hold of a television crew and spend hours interviewing him to get this stuff down. I'm just going to show you a little clip. It lasts about 6 minutes of this man. He's the most incredibly articulate, brilliant man, telling information he has never spoken about publicly before, not least because he thought people would think he was mad. So let's play the video. The question I asked him was, Credo, what did this Chitahuri, the children of the serpent, look like?
This is how a Chitauri looks like. It stands about 11 feet high. It is a very slender being which seems not to have a bone structure. Its fingers have no joints. They are more as if the bones in here were flexible. Some of the Chitauri have got 3 claws with a thumb. Some have got 6 claws with a thumb. And some of the Chitauris have got horns on their heads. And what surprises me is this. Some film producers, like the producers whom who make the films Star Wars often show creatures in their films which actually exist, which even the most uneducated of Africans who knows this Chitauli can identify. For example, in the new Star Wars film, what is it called? Star Wars or something like that. There is a creature who amazes me called Darth Maul. Darth Maul is a red and black being with a ring of small horns right round his head. That is exactly what the Chitauli look like. Some have got ordinary heads without any horns on their heads. These are the lesser Chitauli. But the royal Chitauli have got a ring of sharp horns all around their heads.
There's another reason why there's 10 bodies, 6 of them children, under the bloody floorboards. The first President of the United States, George Washington, was not just a high-degree Freemason. The whole inaugural ceremony was run by Freemasons. There's pictures of it, the bloody aprons as they walked down. They took over America under the guise of freedom. And then we've got old Thomas Jefferson, another bloodline guy. He actually wrote that all men are created equal while owning 200 black slaves. I mean, can I have a word, mate? Just a little word here. I mean, you know what I mean? Because right up to the present day, very easy to say. You don't have to live it, you just have to convince the people that that's the case. Then you do as you like. It's called winning elections. And now we come down these bloodlines of presidents to this guy, George W. Bush. And maybe he won't win the election, but 3 years ago I predicted that he would be the next president of the United States. Not because I'm a genius or a prophet, but because when you understand the bloodlines and how high this guy up is in the hierarchy for a president, then everything starts to fall into place. This guy, George Bush, has an astonishing history. And if you just read my books or go into the website, you'll see the sort of stuff this guy is into. It is staggering. And he is the man named more than any other as a shapeshifter. Again, rising sun. And again, when you look in these Illuminati-controlled magazines like Newsweek and Time, you see the symbolism, rising sun. It may seem an obvious headline, but to them, it's symbolic. The sun is constantly used. Which brings me to this, the secret language. If you're running a secret operation, then you need your codes and you need your symbols that your initiates understand and can read, but the general population don't even know what's going on. And here's some examples of that as we go along, because these are all around us. The Illuminati, one of the great Illuminati symbols over the years, this was a Templar symbol, was the skull and bones. This is on a Freemasonic apron from the last century. And so, as a result of that skull and bones symbol of the Illuminati, we get one of the most notorious secret societies in the whole of North America, the Skull and Bones Society. Most famous member George Bush, soon to be most famous member George W. Bush. And his father, George Bush's father, George W.'s grandfather, Prescott Bush, was also a member of this Skull and Bones Society. Invitation by bloodline only. And the Russell Trust that related to the Russell family and Charles Taze Russell that started the Jehovah's Witnesses are the people who funded the creation of the Skull and Bones Society. And the Russell Trust used to use Skull and Bones flags on their ships as they ran drugs into China during the Opium Wars for the British or the Illuminati based in Britain. Skull and Bones is a major symbol, but the pyramid is even bigger than that. And it's not just that the pyramid is a symbol in the coded language. The pyramid is a geometrical structure which does things to energy, particularly if you plonk them in these vortex points. And so they've used the pyramid not just as a symbol, but also to manipulate energy. A few years ago, during the reign in France of the 33-degree Freemason François Mitterrand, they staggered anyone with an eye for aesthetics by building this big glass pyramid right next to the Louvre Museum, this beautiful museum in Paris. And people were staggered. And they had a ritual opening of this ugly friggin' thing. There's Margaret Thatcher and all these other people here. All the heads of Europe were there. Now, why did they put that there? In a few minutes, we'll see why they put it there. The pyramid with the all-seeing eye, the all-seeing eye, the watchers from that hand by that Credo Mutwa's artifact, is a massive Illuminati symbol. This is the guiding force that controls the pyramid. And this was put on the dollar bill, this ancient Illuminati symbol, by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of the major frontmen for the Illuminati in the 20th century, in 1933. And this is a mass of esoteric symbolism which the Illuminati initiates understand and the rest of us don't understand. It breaks down, it is said, all that Latin and stuff on it as he favors our undertaking new order of the ages, or words to that effect. And down the bottom, by the way, it says May the 1st, 1776. Now, people have taken that to be the year of the Declaration of Independence. That's why it's on the dollar bill. Or it doesn't say May the 1st, it says 1776. But on May the 1st, 1776, something else happened. There was the creation of a major element within the Illuminati network called the Bavarian Illuminati that was behind many of the manipulations and wars and conflicts in Europe which followed. Again, you see this. This is the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. The Reynolds is one of the bloodlines out of North Carolina. And the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company was owned at one time, maybe it still is, by the Gray family that are very, very close to George Bush. In North Carolina, in the area that this company controls, people don't realize this, that race purity did not end with Adolf Hitler. In 1946, in North Carolina, in the area that this lot controlled, R.J. Reynolds and the families that control it, children were given intelligence tests, and those that fell below a certain level were forcibly brought with their parents in front of a eugenics court, and little boys and little girls were sterilized because they did not reach the desired level of intelligence. That was not in Nazi Germany. That was in 1946 in North Carolina. The Nazis and the fascists did not end in 1945. They just took the jackboots off and the uniforms and put on business suits and smart shirt and ties. Again, the all-seeing eye keeps coming up again and again. This, look at that, this is the symbol of British intelligence. Look at it, British intelligence. That, by the way, the fleur-de-lis is a symbol of the Merovingian bloodline, and it goes back to, this is the Babylonian Trinity. You'll find that everywhere, particularly in relation to British royalty. This is MI5, and British intelligence is the premier intelligence operation in the world that controls, indeed created, the CIA, and certainly will be massively influential in affairs in Canada. Even the all-seeing eye is on the capstone at the top. Again, this is triads from China, same thing, because they all connect in the end at the top level. This is Fidelity Investments, again, the same thing, recurring. And the eye, the all-seeing eye, CBS television. And what does CBS stand for? Columbia Broadcasting. Everywhere you look, you see this stuff once you start to see what's going on. Now, what you're looking at here, and if I saw this for the first time and heard what I'm about to say, I might say, don't be bloody daft. But when you put it together with all the rest, you start to realize that there is nothing that is a coincidence in Illuminati symbolism. This is Dealey Plaza. This is where they killed Kennedy. They killed him in a street plan of a pyramid with a capstone missing. That is a railway bridge that cuts off the join. Now, this area is very, very sacred to the Secret Society network. This is where they put the first Freemasonic temple in Dallas. And they killed him here, Kennedy here, in this, what is to them a sun temple in their kind of the way that they see the world and their ritual. Now, I'm going to come back to Kennedy in a second, because he fits in many areas. Now we come to the main Illuminati symbol, which you'll see all over the place. It's the lighted torch, or the flame. And this comes, not in part at least, from another recurring story from the ancient world. And that is of some hero who took fire from the gods, fire equaling knowledge, and handed it to humans. In other words, these bloodlines, it seems. Now, this is the most famous one, a Greek hero called Prometheus, who was supposed to have taken fire, knowledge from the gods, and given it to humans. Now, this, therefore, the flame became the major Illuminati symbol. Now, this gold statue of Prometheus is actually in the Rockefeller Center in New York. It was put there by the Rockefellers, the bloodline branch managers of America, and further afield. And there's a plaque there to that effect. Now, to the Rockefellers, that is massive symbolism, which they understand about the bloodlines holding the knowledge and using it for this agenda. Now, that's what that is. Go back in the ancient world, and you find that the Phoenicians and the Babylonians and the people of that area at that time, they used to sacrifice children to a deity called Moloch or Molech. In the Old Testament even, you can see references to people being condemned for putting their children through the fire to Molech. When I've talked, and I've done so much research into the Satanism network, not least because to understand that staggeringly is to understand how the world's controlled and who's doing it. And I've talked to victims of this stuff, most of which don't survive, of course, but the few that have, comparatively. And I've talked to therapists around the world, particularly a great friend of mine in London, Vera Diamond. And they tell me that today, these elite names are still doing ritual sacrifices of children to a deity called Moloch or Molech, the same as they were thousands of years ago. So we ask the question, how do they symbolize Moloch, as an owl? Which is staggering, considering this is what I discovered. It wasn't in the book. I just saw it as I was looking at the street plan of Washington. This is the Congress building, and all I've done is draw a red line around the roads within the Congress complex. It is a quite obvious owl, but don't take my word for it. This next one I have not even touched. It's a straight picture from a Washington Street directory you can buy anywhere in Washington. Not only is the Congress building in the belly of the owl, it's standing on a pyramid. The pyramid and all-seeing owl. And that in the belly of the owl, the Illuminati, you couldn't get much more symbolic than that. Now, if we move on, like I said with the Nazis, where they took a swastika and they turn it around to indicate the negative, what the Satanists do is they do two things. They either reverse symbolize symbols, the five-pointed star points down, Satanism, or they distort esoteric symbols to destroy their balance, and that also indicates the negative to them in their symbolic language. This here is the Congress building. This here is the White House. And the center of a pentagram is a pentagon, which just happens to be the shape and name of the very headquarters of the American military. So if we go back to this symbol, just let's take this example. Here's the White House. You go straight the way through there, that middle road, I think it's called 16th Street, from the White House. You get to here somewhere, and you find a very strange building in the street plan of Washington. And it's Icke. There you go. There it is. And here you have the symbolism of the Sphinx here, kind of feel. There you have the Horus, the magnificent it is when you see it live, sun coming up over the horizon. And here we have basically an Egyptian temple. Here's a close-up of the, or a closer-up of the sun, Horus, son of God of ancient Egypt. What is this building? It's the supreme headquarters, 33rd degree Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Freemasonry did not begin in the 1700s. It is part of a seamless web of manipulation which changes its name from time to time so we lose the plot. And it goes back right to where these bloodlines come out of, or at least as far back as I've been able to research so far. And again, it keeps coming up. This is the imagery of the Rosicrucian organization. Thomas Jefferson was a Rosicrucian. Again, it's all Egyptian symbolism. There's the sun again, because that's where this stuff comes out of, that part of the world particularly. Now, this is not a political building, the Congress building. It's actually a temple to the Illuminati Secret Society network. The reason it's called Capitol Hill is because when the Illuminati was based in Rome during the Roman Empire and the creation of Christianity, one of their sacred places of worship and ritual was a place called Capitoline Hill. And so this became Capitol Hill when the Freemasons built it. And when Madeleine Albright, the high priestess of American politics, and I'm not kidding, was appointed by Clinton to be Secretary of State, her first overseas visit was to Italy and Europe, and she made an official visit to Capitoline Hill, which to her would have been a pilgrimage and a highly symbolic visit for those in the know of what's going on. So when you look at the Nazis, who were just an expression, another wing of this manipulation to create the divide and rule and the war that created 55 million casualties of all races, you find the same symbolism because it's the same gang. The Maltese cross, the cross of the Knights of Malta, classic on the Nazi uniform. This guy's won the lottery, he's got the lot. The skull and bones, the reverse sun symbol, the swastika, and the eagle, which evolved as a symbol out of the phoenix, the sunbird of the Phoenicians and of the Egyptians. Here's another Nazi, the flying sun disk, going back to ancient Egypt. It's the same symbolism because we're looking at two sides of the same thing. Now, the Heil Hitler symbol actually was a part of a ritual from a secret society called the Order of the Golden Dawn, which was most famously peopled by a guy called Aleister Crowley, a close friend of Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Britain during the wartime, and also very much operating in Germany, where the Nazis were coming out of the esoteric occult Teutonic Knights network through the Thule Society, the Edelweiss Society, and the Vril Society. And again, the heraldry and the stuff, this is the crown they crown the Queen with. I don't know what they bloody do, silly thing. Anyway, they have the Maltese cross. You find all the symbolism in all that stuff as well. And this is interesting. Liberty. You'll find this in the United States Congress. It's about liberty, you'll see, because we're free, you'll see. Very free country, you'll say, very bright. Well, what's that doing there, then? That symbol is the very symbol from which we get the name fascism. It's called the fasci. It comes from the Roman Empire. And why does it symbolize fascism? Because they tie rods, individual elements, countries, people, organizations together tightly, and they rule them from the top with an axe head, a rod of iron. It's what fascism is. I've just described the European Union. The European Union, which they want NAFTA to evolve into the America's version of, which is why they're crashing the Canadian dollar. They've got get the one currency and get rid of the Canadian currency. The European Union has a situation in which they have centralized control of the countries of Europe in Brussels, where bureaucrats make decisions, unelected bureaucrats, which override the national laws of the countries of Europe. That's classic fascism, even on the basis of the very symbol we get the word from. And this is the Colorado seal. Look at this. Colorado's a massive Illuminati center, not least Denver, where that airport is with the gargoyles. There you have, again, the sun and the symbol of the pyramid. But look, there again, the classic fascist symbol on a so-called free American state. And when you go to the Knights of Columbus, I took this in eastern Canada, again, the classic fascist symbol. They understand at the top level what it means. They're talking to us. Again, Arco, Atlantic Richfield Oil Company. You see it in the transnationals. That's the pyramid with the capstone missing. Look out from above. This is the House of Lorraine, one of the great depositories of the bloodline. This is the double cross of the House of Lorraine, the cross of Lorraine, from where we get the term being double-crossed, being manipulated, and how appropriate then that we should find it in this Exxon Oil Company. This is from a copper operation in America, and according to the research of Fritz Springmeier in a book called The Illuminati Bloodlines, this was a symbol almost exact from the Bavarian Illuminati, which started on May the 1st, 1776. And so we get in America the Circle K operation. K and circles appear, I've not really worked this out yet, appear to be part of the code. And there you have Texaco. Again, it's all esoteric symbolism. The circle, the pentagram, and the T-square of Freemasonry. And Bill Clinton's been there as well, as you can see there. I didn't see that.